It is ETF Friday time. Here's Julie Hyman.
Thank you, Vonnie. And I'm here, of course, with Eric Balchunas of Bloomberg Intelligence. I was about to say Eric Gundlach because I was talking about Jeff Gundlach, who made news this week when he said at the Sohn conference that he was buying the SPDR, the Spider S&P Oil and Gas ETF. He said he was short Facebook. Now, this is a guy, Eric, who is known for fixed income. That's really how he made his name. But in the past few years, he has sort of strayed into making these recommendations about ETFs and about equities. How has he done with his track record so far?
So we only looked at calls where he gives you a specific ETF, because I find that fascinating. And ETFs, anybody can use them. That's why they're good to put in your calls. He's done well, better than you probably think. And so his XOP, that's why it gets attention. These trades work out. If you look over the past, say, 5 years, he's made 5 or 6 calls using specific ETFs. Like he called EWJ and DXJ, the Japan, in 2012. That did really well. We basically said, we looked at his calls and we said, let's say your holding period for each call was a year, right? And then you equal weight them. You're looking at an average return of 22%. Now, the S&P is up 140% over 5 years, but this is more like a hedge fund because you're going long short, and the average hedge fund is up 14%, and the average macro hedge fund is up only 4%. So if Gundlach's ETF picks were a hedge fund, he'd do pretty well. And I think the fact that he isn't an equity manager maybe also gives them some, they make them genuine, because he's not talking his book at all. He's just saying what he thinks. And so far it works out. But obviously, as an ETF analyst,
they do. He specifically doesn't, but I think the firm now has some equity holdings as well. Double Line does. If you look specifically at his India and emerging market picks, what about the ETFs he's recommended there? In
India, he said INP. Now that's an ETF. It's actually closed. So if you're looking to play India, and also he said India is long term, not a year. INDA is the big liquid one. EPI is a decent one. That's using earnings, which gives you more of a value play in India. And then Franklin Templeton, FLIN, has one that's dirt cheap at 19 basis points. That's 4 times cheap any other one. Those are some other picks besides INP, but INP is no longer in existence. So, and in the emerging markets, he said EM. Us analysts just can't handle that. It's too expensive. IMG is the same thing virtually, and it's basically 5 times cheaper, and it's now very liquid, $500 million trading a day.
So obviously he needs an ETF primer from you. Very quickly, what about his own ETF? How is it done?
Well, it's up. It's beating the ag. It's not crushing it, but it's beating the ag. It's went down less than the ag this year, so his job beating that is doing fine. And it's now the second biggest actively managed ETF overall at $3.3 billion. So he never talks about it as much, though, it seems like. But that one's doing well on its own. But again, much more like, the returns are against the ag.